the Taliban movement takes over Kabul and actually maybe about 60-70% of the whole country. Um, and so we know of an entity called the Taliban, and then parallel to that, there's another entity which is Al-Qaeda, which is not one and the same thing, but have a lot of things in common. So they're running in parallel. Can you tell us a little bit about that? So I've also read somewhere that when the Taliban took over Afghanistan and Kabul, Al- Osama bin Laden was already there. So a little bit in the defense of the Taliban, what they have said previously is that they were not the ones to bring Al Qaeda in to Afghanistan. They inherited Al Qaeda. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, you're right. That happened because they inherited the Al-Qaeda affiliates. Actually, to the best of our understanding, the Taliban does not have any sympathy with Al-Qaeda at that time. But kind of cultural context, if we have to see that, and they have a Pashtun Wali code where they respect their guests and they do not hand over, they do not denounce their contributions, whatever they did.
Mhm.
So we know that this Osama bin Laden, came into Afghanistan from Saudi Arabia, Al-Zawahiri from Egypt, and this all orchestration was, the Arab Muslims were working along with the Mujahideen in Afghanistan against Soviet Union. So when this Mujahideen ended up in civil war, they did not even allow these Arabs to play any part in the civil war. So they were not directly part and parcel of the civil war, other than they were just staunch observers over there. So with all these developments, when Taliban came into power and they became a force in Afghanistan, a reality in Afghanistan. So they did the same thing. They did not bother these, Arab, Mujahideen or factions. Rather, they just provided them the space to stay quiet and do their work, what they are doing there. So they did not have any kind of affiliation with them, but they inherited a kind of baggage which they actually protected under their own code of social codes and cultural values rather than based on some kind of global agenda or regional agenda that they would be useful or handy to help the Taliban at that time. So that was the overall perspective. But as we know that the so-called Arab, these Mujahideens were having their own agenda, and Al Qaeda was kind of outlook that we have observed at the end of the day.
Yes, interesting. And the reason that Osama bin Laden was in Afghanistan at that time was because um, Osama bin Laden was from Saudi Arabia, and a lot of funding was coming in from Saudi Arabia via Pakistan to Afghanistan. And is it right that Osama bin Laden was one of the funders, but then decided that he wants to play a more proactive role in the jihad against the Soviets, which is what brought him into Afghanistan. So by the time the Taliban came in, that was the reason for his presence there. And then obviously things changed because now there's no more Soviets, but now we have these factions within Afghanistan fighting each other. And in the midst of that, we have um, was it an Arab faction inside Afghanistan, or were they there supporting an existing tribal?
Yeah, actually, I would not say that the government of Saudi Arabia was funding directly to Osama bin Laden or any
Sure.
kind of faction operating in Afghanistan, like Mujahideen, any faction of Mujahideen or any other faction of the Arab world. Rather, they were as a state, they were responsibly, become they were responsible part of the US-led proxy war in Afghanistan, where United States of America, Pakistan, and Saudi Arabia were all together on a very calculated basis. So whatever was given by Saudi Arabia or whatever was given by the USA, everything was
On a
it was
state-to-state basis.
yeah, state to state basis, and so no independent entity was created in Afghanistan. Actually, that was one of the objectives of Pakistan's ISI and Pakistan's military establishment at that time, as a whole, the state of Pakistan, that it did not allow any indirect interaction of any of the countries, including United States, to directly deal with the situation in Afghanistan. So that the reason was obvious because then those groups would become independent factions within
Yeah,
Afghanistan
that
that
was
could
wise
create problems for
decision. Yeah.
Pakistan. Yeah. So that was a clear policy over it. But Osama bin Laden as a person, as an individual, belongs to a very rich and wealthy family.
Hmm.
So he does own his own resources. And many of the Arab people which were coming into Afghanistan on the behest of Al-Qaeda, so not Al-Qaeda, Al-Qaeda became a later entity, but on behest of Osama bin Laden, Al-Zawahiri, because they have been very proactively leading some of their own political movements in Saudi Arabia and in Egypt. They have very good number of friends there who would love to come back, come into Afghanistan, join them, and along with their own resources. So their resources were separate one coming to their own pockets and their own
Yeah.
affiliate. So it has nothing to do with the official, contribution of Saudi Arabia or Pakistan. Yeah,
Okay. So so then we have um, from 1996, another 5 years. The Taliban are ruling Afghanistan. There's still some small-scale fighting going on inside Afghanistan, and then we have September 11th, 2001, the well-documented attack on American soil. Tell us
yeah,
a little bit about what happened in that context around that time.
yeah. Actually, for example, this so-called rise of Taliban and how Pakistan, connected with them, and afterwards the 9/11 incident, which was unfolded at new events in Afghanistan. First of all, Pakistan's support for the Taliban emerged as a strategic response to the chaos and instability of Afghanistan civil war. That's the
Yeah.
pretext of Pakistan's support to Taliban. So the Taliban, largely composed of Pashtun students from religious schools, as I've already said, which were madrasas, were seen as a force capable of restoring order and stability in Afghanistan because the disorder was, getting multiplied day by day. Because the Mujahideen were not settling down and Taliban came into existence. So the calculation of that time was that they have to get something out of nothing. So for that reason, Taliban were considered a kind of reality that can a force capable of restoring, order and stability in Afghanistan. So Pakistan provided crucial support to the Taliban, including diplomatic recognition, military assistance, and as well as logistical support. So the ISI played a key role in facilitating the Taliban's rise to power by providing training, funding, and intelligence sharing. So as a result, Pakistan's support for the Taliban was motivated, as I mentioned, by various factors, including the desire for a friendly government in Kabul, strategic depth against India, and concerns about the spread of radical Islamist ideologies. Because if there is a regime in Afghanistan and Kabul, they could be asked to take certain steps, and those steps would help Pakistan to bring stability within Afghanistan as well as Pakistan. So Pakistan's role and involvement in these historical events of Afghanistan have been based on complex and shaped by its own strategic interests. So as a result, when it was there, but the stability as a whole was not something that we can positively pitch on. We can say that it was Afghanistan became a kind of country or state that brought an ideal situation. Somehow it was evolving. It was nurturing the kind of required sense where Afghanistan can move forward and inclusively include other part of its ethnic or sectarian population. But what we knew that in on September 11th, 2001, 9/11 incident happened on U.S. soil and marked a pivotal moment in modern history, and had significant ramification as a result for Afghanistan and the wider region. So that incident actually, where 19 hijackers were associated with the terrorist group of Al Qaeda, who carried out that coordinated suicide attacks against targets in the United States. So we know that four commercial airlines were hijacked, and with two planes crashing into the twin towers of the World Trade Center in New York City, and one into the Pentagon in Arlington, Virginia, and the fourth crashing into a field in Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania, of passengers, attempted to regain control of the aircraft. So that's how 3,000 innocent lives were killed, and it caused a widespread devastation and shocked the world, including the United States of America. So Al Qaeda, which was led by Osama bin Laden, they claimed the responsibility of the attacks, and that whole episode, after the aftermath of September attacks, that investigations revealed that the mastermind behind the plot was Osama bin Laden, who was then residing in Afghanistan, so under the so-called protection of the Taliban regime. So that Al Qaeda then had established training camps and operational bases in Afghanistan, where it had been planning and orchestrating terrorist activities, including the September 9/11 for many years. So the attacks prompted the United States to demand that the Taliban government hand over Osama bin Laden and dismantle Al Qaeda infrastructure in Afghanistan. But however, the Taliban refused to comply with these demands, leading to a swift and forceful response from the US and its allies. So then this Operation Enduring Freedom, on October 7, 2001, which was less than a month after the September 11 attacks, which was also supported by the NATO allies and Afghan anti-Taliban forces. They launched a military operation against the Taliban regime and Al-Qaeda targets in Afghanistan. So the US-led invasion, the Operation Enduring Freedom, it aimed to overthrow the Taliban regime, also to dismantle Al Qaeda's terrorist infrastructure and bring those responsible for the September 11 attacks to justice. So the invasion involved airstrikes, we know that ground offensives and special operations, which were conducted by the US and coalition forces. So Afghanistan's anti-Taliban and militias, including the Northern Alliance, they also played a crucial role in supporting the coalition's military campaign. So at the end, so the Taliban regime was swiftly ousted from power, and a new government led by Hamid Karzai was installed in Kabul. So Al Qaeda's training camps and safe havens in Afghanistan were disrupted, and many of its leaders and operatives were also captured and killed. And Pakistan played a very important role in dismantling Al Qaeda, because most of the Al Qaeda operatives were captured and handed over by Pakistan to the United States of America. Yeah.